saying good afternoon to you, Cathy.
Hello there. Hi there.
I'm elated to have you on my show today, and I would love to tell my viewers, audience, that Cathy is a person. She's a life coach, a teacher, and I know that you have also like published 30 books, and you wanna start your Cathy's Health, I guess, Wellness Center in the UK.
Yes, what happened was 10 years ago, I wrote my first book and had it published, and it was called 100 Free Ways to Happier Days. And it was all about well-being. And I really wanted to make well-being accessible to everybody. And I figured that through a book, it's more accessible than perhaps a coaching package. And since then, all the books I've written, I worked out are kind of connected to well-being. And when we had lockdown, I realized a lot of people were feeling isolated and they couldn't go out and maybe they couldn't go to the jobs that they used to go to. Some people felt vulnerable because they were more vulnerable to be ill, and it was very isolating. So 4 years ago, I came up with like a virtual well-being cafe on Facebook that was called Cathy's Wellbeing Cafe. And then a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, um, people in the group kind of encouraged me, and I decided to act upon something that I wanted to do for a long time, which was to really build a true sense of community, first of all online, and then building it offline in the form of maybe to begin with meeting up at some locations and having some well-being events and building up that true sense of community with the ultimate aim to build our own wellbeing centre by the sea in the UK. Now, we've obviously got a long way to go to get to
Mhm.
that point, but what we did, we registered as what they call a community interest company. And we have what we call the 7 C's, which are the ways that we achieve our aims. So the aims we've got, one of them is collaboration.
Yeah.
So it's really important to collaborate with people. One of them is cooperation. And if we don't cooperate, we won't get anywhere. The
Mm.
next thing is communication. And that's in all its forms, whether it's virtually, whether it's face to face. It's celebration, really important to celebrate all our successes, and compassion. Compassion for people, for animals, for our planet. Creativity, and that can include creative thinking as well as art, music, that kind of thing, and coaching, which is where we all started by talking about well-being. And so that's kind of what I've been doing for these last few years. And thank you for letting me talk about it.
And I would also love to know, Katie, that you have mentioned 100 ways to celebrate your lives, and in that you have mentioned about ways through which you can celebrate. That is by choosing your favorite song, choosing your favorite food. And in your case, it's hummus, and the song is "Stew" by Blur. And happy
Yes.
memories, happy memories. And the thing that I highly liked was you also mentioned quotes. For me, quotes are, they play a big part in my life. Sometimes when I don't feel up to the mark, I read some motivational quotes, and it uplifts me. And in your case, it's one step at a time is a good walking, a Chinese proverb.
Absolutely, because it can become very overwhelming if you've got like a big goal or a big dream, or even just trying to make it through life. Sometimes everything seems to kind of fall upon you at the same time. And if you think, right, I can't achieve everything today, but I can take one step towards where I wish to be. And every time you take a step, you get that little bit closer to your destination. And I mean, I think I looked it up, and it's as a proverb. It's like there's no name attached to it, but I find that incredibly motivating.
Makes sense. Wow. And what inspired you to be a vegan, Katie? I know that you told in one of the videos as well that you are vegan. How long have you been vegan, and what was the inspiration?
Okay, it's around 2 years now, and I have some mobility issues, and it's from a knee that gets quite swollen. And ages ago, I read a book, and they said because everybody's body is different, and I think some people are, they have problems with gluten. Some people find meat a problem. And I was a vegetarian, so I ate dairy for since I was 16, and I'm in my 50s now. So I thought I was quite happy with that. When I read this book, one of the biggest kind of allergens for some people, not everybody, is dairy. And I thought, oh, I really don't know if I want to give up dairy, but I tried it and it made such a difference that I just feel, well, okay, I was already vegetarian. I was mainly vegetarian for the animals, but I'm kind of vegan for me, if that makes sense.
Got it. Wow. And Katie, I know that you have met a lot of people from all walks of life. So, what sort of experiences and what sort of life lessons that you have learned from meeting those people that you can share with me also and with my for audience as well?
Okay, I think first thing is we've all got our own perspective on life. A lot of that might be from our religion, it might be from our community, it might be from our upbringing. And I think that if we are aware of that, and if we also believe that at that moment, everybody's doing the best they can, it can really help us to connect and communicate. Because even if what someone's saying is challenging you, is maybe what you don't agree with, often if you take some time, some real active listening, you can actually both take a step towards understanding each other better. And instead of everybody shouting at each other or saying you're wrong, it's actually, why does this person think the way they think? And ask them some questions and listen to what they have to say. And actually, you can respectfully disagree, but by listening to where they're coming from and they give their rationale for their decisions and their thoughts, you start to realize, oh, yeah, perhaps if I had your life, I would be thinking that too, you know, and that because you've listened to them, they are more likely to listen to you. I remember a few years ago, the UK was arguing over whether we should have Brexit, whether we should leave or stay in the EU. And they had, I think it was a news program, and they actually filmed two people with strongly opposing views. And they were on the beach somewhere and they started talking, and they both started off a bit angry. But when they started listening to each other, each one said, oh, okay, yeah, I can see why you think that. And
Mm,
maybe they didn't change their mind, but they both stepped away with a lot more respect for one another. And I feel like we can learn so much from people, not least if they trigger us. Is there something about them that we recognize in ourselves? Is there something that they're doing that we don't like? And then we realize we do that too, you know?
intriguing. Wow. And if I'm not wrong, you are writing your 31st book that is amalgamation of the previous 30 books that you have, like all the knowledge of the 30 books are there in your 31st book, right? Katie?
Yeah, I haven't actually launched it yet properly, but this book
Wow.
is that book,
Together,
and
let's
it's called
find this.
Together Let's Find Ways to Happier Days. And I've also called it Cloud Thoughts. Now, Cloud Thoughts was my looking up at the sky and noticing a cloud can be in the sky representing our thoughts. And if you just watch it for a while, it moves on and it disperses. And it reminds us, even when we're struggling, that these things will pass. So that was kind of my inspiration for the title. And then in the book, it's, I mean, to be honest, it is better as an ebook because it's got links to all the other books. I mean, obviously, you could go and put it all in, but this book is just so I've got a paperback copy. And what I've done is I've tried to explain how each book kind of links to the other book. And also, I've explained that this book, all the profits from these books, goes towards helping us to build the Wellbeing Centre. So I'm hoping that my writing will actually support that next step.
definitely. And it's in haiku form, right? There are short.
Well, some of it, it's like what I've done is I've basically summarized the different books, summarized the kind of lessons that I've learnt, um, talked a bit about the Wellbeing Club and what our mission is. And there are some poems. I've got one here that's talking about colours. And yes, in a kind of haiku form, I've got a little poem about cloud thoughts. There's a little bit of history because what I tried to do is think back on the last 10 years, what's happened to all of us and how events affect us all. And then I started to compare all our kind of decades in our lives with life transitions. So when you're under 10, the kind of things that tend to concern you, 10 to 20, and so on. And obviously you can't pinpoint common theme for everything. But if you're in your 20s, maybe some of the things that are concerning you might be different from when you're in your 80s. Some things will be the same, some things will be different. And what I've tried to do is reflect on what we learn from each part of our lives.
Wow, intriguing. And Kathy, if I ask you a hypothetical question, if you go back to your 20-year-old self, what sort of advice would you like to give to your 20-year-old self?
Do you know there's a film called Benjamin Button where he lived his life backwards? I don't know if you know that,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
it.
I feel like I think what happens as you get older, you kind of get more confident in yourself and you realize how amazing you were in your 20s. When
True.
you were in your 20s, you were kind of more racked with anxiety and uncertainty. And I think my message would be you're on the right track, just keep going, you'll get there.
Wow. Yeah, makes sense. And that, by the way, the recommendation of that film is really top notch, starring Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett. I forgot her last name.
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
It's a great film, isn't it? It stayed. I haven't seen it for years, but it stuck with me all this time.
true. And a lot of people nowadays they really try to find happiness. So, what is your definition of happiness, Katie?
I think eventually we realize the little things really are the big things. I
Hmm.
think, there's been a lot of very rich, successful people who kind of say, I wish everyone could be rich to realize that that's not the answer. I'm not denying that funds help you to buy things that you desire, but we can fall into the trap of when I have this material thing, I will be happy. And I
True.
think it's about being happy now and appreciating the things around us that we have right now.
Hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. And even that reminds me of a film, Kathy. I'm not sure whether you have watched it or not. Again, starring Brad Pitt. That is Fight Club. It's all about
Oh, I did. Yes, I have seen that. Yes.
consumerism, right? We buy the things we don't want to impress the people we don't like.
That is extremely true. And I think that's part of it. I think another message would be to do the things that feel right to you. That's not being selfish. It's about actually following your values. And some people, I think there's a quote that what other people think of you is none of your business.
Mm.
And that sounds a bit odd, but I think it's true. So many people make decisions that they think will impress somebody else, and it rarely does impress them. And then you could find that you've lived your life trying to keep somebody happy, and they're not happy anyway.
True. That's right. And can you share with me, Kathy, three more ways to celebrate lives apart from food, songs, happy memories, and quotes?
I would say gratitude. I know it's kind of used a lot, but even if you think of three things, ideally three different things that you're grateful for each day, even sometimes it helps you realize that things that seemed like they weren't very positive and you look back and they turned out okay. So even trying to find the positive in the challenging experiences, I think that's one. I think forgiveness of yourself and others is another. I think as well, I think mindfulness, being in the present, and when you are in the present, you're not worrying about the things that you messed up in the past, and you're not worrying about what may never happen in the future. And I think that as much as you can, if you're grateful, if you're forgiving, and you focus on the now, I think that's when your life really starts to open up. And often that's when you get the inspirations and the ideas to kind of move you where you wish to go.
Wow, intriguing. I can't thank you enough, Katie, for sharing all this profound information and insights with me. And I would love to tell my audience that go check out her book. Can you show it one more time, Katie? The book
Yeah,
of
sure. So it's Together, Let's Find Ways to Happier Days. And then Cathy Shooter is Cathy, Cathy, Shooter, Shuter. If you go onto Amazon and you just Googled Cathy Shooter author page or something like that, you'll find all the books. But this book, if you buy the ebook, you can click on the links and it'll take you to all the books. I will say some of those books I have found links that no longer work. I have deliberately left them because I see them as a book that was a snapshot in time. So, for example, one book might have a link to a website. You click on that, it might not be working anymore. You should be able to get all the books from the links, but within those books, some of their links don't necessarily work. The other thing I will say is that language changes. One of the books I talked about ASD, which is autistic spectrum disorder. We don't tend to use that anymore. We tend to say people with autism or
Mm,
autistic people. So some of it has changed. But again, when I was writing it at the time, that is what we were saying. So again, if you want to visit the books, they are very much of their time, but I hope each one actually helps people to find ways to live more happily.
I'm sure it will, definitely. And it was really lovely having this conversation with you, Katie. I won't hold you any longer. Having said that, we're gonna meet up again in the future. I have a friend of mine. She's also, she has a thing like she's also from the UK, and she runs this kind of institute, just the way that you want to, create. She runs an institute that is she has a community and health thing. I forgot the institute name, but I'll share the link of our conversation with you. And if possible, the three of us can have this conversation where we can talk about
That
this.
would be amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, great. Thank you ever so much.
yeah.
Thank you for taking all the time to read up on me and for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathy, for being a part of this podcast, and we'll catch up soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.